So thank you. I'll introduce myself. My name is Hannah. I'm an active transportation planner with the Boston Transportation Department. And then Dan.
Hi, my name's Dan Marrow. I'm a professional engineer in the Active Transportation Department under Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Suskin. I'm the Active Transportation Director in the Boston Transportation Department, and I oversee the whole Neighborhood Slow Streets program. Back to you, Hannah.
All right, so this is a meeting one of several meetings we've had to share project updates about the Moreland Street and Mount Pleasant Avenue neighborhood slow street zone. So this includes all of the streets and neighborhood streets between Warren Street, Blue Hill Avenue, Dudley Street. And I think that's Clifford Street, south of Waverly. And tonight we're going to have a focused conversation about our proposal for a safer crossing on Copeland Street near the Little Scobie Playground. And then after that, we'll answer any general questions you have about the project. So to step back, neighborhood slow streets is an approach to solving street safety issues. We focus on safety improvements on a connected network of small neighborhood streets. Our focus is on building design changes to improve safety and slow speeds. And all of the streets that are within the zone will have a posted speed limit of 20 miles per hour. We approach design by engaging residents and prioritizing key focus areas where we'll make improvements and investments. We prioritize people walking, biking, older adults, and youth and people with disabilities. And our goal is to reduce the crashes that lead to the most serious injuries or fatalities. So we got here where we are. We started in fall 2020 by collecting safety concerns from residents in the neighborhood. So many of you filled out a survey and sent it back to us by mail. We met several residents at a pop-up workshop in September of 2020, and several people also filled out an online survey sharing safety concerns. And then in spring 2021, we shared initial ideas that responded to some of the issue areas that you raised. We shared these ideas in a virtual meeting in May 2021, and then also shared a follow-up letter. In the picture you see on the screen, you may recognize that, asking for feedback on these initial ideas. So then we followed up with field work and did some of our own observations and field work, and then started producing sharing initial designs. So these designs, we hosted a virtual meeting in November of 2021 and shared these for feedback. And we also mailed postcards with the updated designs and information about speed humps to get your feedback. And our design process always starts with the safety concerns that you raise and the issue areas that specific issue areas and intersections that people raise. Then we go out onto the street and we follow up with our own observations about curb ramps that need to be updated and things that are relevant to engineering. And then we draw up those initial ideas. And then we go through another round of getting your feedback about these and do some more vetting through engineering fieldwork. And then we come up with these initial design concepts, which we are sharing in the process of sharing with you right now. So I'm going to talk quickly about some of the street design tools that we use to make crossings and caution the street safer and slow speeds. So curb extensions are extensions of the sidewalk at the crosswalk, and they create shorter crossings. So someone crossing the street is spending less time in the street, and they're more protected. And the sidewalk is extended to the street basically less than the width of most cars. They also provide more space to build an accessible curb ramp. Raised crosswalks are crosswalks that are raised to this level of the sidewalk. So this means that we don't need to build a curb ramp because it's a flat, even surface from sidewalk to sidewalk. So clear corners or the lack of clear corners at intersections is often an issue. It creates blind spots when cars or other objects are obstructing the visibility at intersections. That creates blind spots and sometimes makes it dangerous to whether you're driving a car or crossing the street on foot or bike. So we've installed flex posts and pavement markings across the city of Boston to push parking further back from the crosswalk so that the sight lines at the intersection are better, and you can be better prepared to see if there's a car coming from a side street or if there's people about to cross the street. So we're going to talk specifically about Copeland Street and our design and options for making a safer crossing to the park. So some of the safety concerns we've heard that there's right after the curve in the street, there's a blind spot if you're trying to cross the street to the park. And it's especially when there are parked cars on both sides of the street, it makes it particularly difficult to see oncoming cars. And there's no existing crosswalk in the middle of Copeland Street right now to get to the park. So we have 3 design options for you to share, and so we want to talk through each of these with you and get your feedback. We've shared this design option before. So this option would put a raised crossing close on the straight part of Copeland Street, right in front of close to the park entrance. So it would be near 41 Copeland Street. And the placement of the crosswalk here would be most visible to cars that are approaching. So it would be before the curve in the street. So a car that's driving down Copeland Street would still be able to see, would be able to see the crosswalk and people crossing the street from far away. A raised crossing provides a safe and comfortable crossing and eliminates the need for building curb ramps. And this option would be the closest option to the park entrance. So to keep these crosswalks safe for everyone, parking will be restricted along the curb extensions. And with clear space in front of the crosswalk, drivers and pedestrians will be better to be able to see each other. So a second option is to build a raised crosswalk just south of Langford Park. Parking would be restricted in front of 42 Copeland Street and 45 Copeland Street. But there's an existing parking restriction with the hydrant right in front of the crosswalk. A third option would be to build a raised crosswalk just north of Langford Park. So this would be near 49 Copeland Street and 50 Copeland Street. Parking would be restricted right in front of the crosswalk because we don't want parking too close to the crosswalk. And this option would mean moving an accessible parking space from right in front of 15 Copeland Street back toward closer to 52 Copeland Street. Okay, so I know that some people joined recently. So I just wanted to pause here and show all of the options on the screen right now and talk through some of these options and ask if anybody has any questions or want me to go back to talking about the specific designs.
Feel free to use the raise your hand function on the bottom of the screen.
Elaine, your hand is up first. I think you
Yep.
should. Great.
I live in 41. I do not want to raise a sidewalk in front of me. Let me tell you something. I've been living here 27 years. The kids never cross in front of my house. They cross across from the park because that's where the stairs are. Okay. Let me tell you, coming down the street, I see people zoom in before they get to that area and after they get to the area. They're always, I mean, no matter how many signs are up, they don't pay attention. Now, I've gone down many streets. They don't put a raised crosswalk. They just put a hump or whatever you call it, okay? I don't understand why we can't do something like that instead of putting a raised crosswalk in front of my house.
So something that we didn't mention is that we are adding speed humps. We talked about this at a previous meeting.
Which I never heard about.
So all of the, we'll share the map in a minute, but Copeland Street will have speed humps. And we're in the process of citing the locations for those right now. Dan?
I didn't have anything further to add to that.
I just want to say that one of our goals for the Neighborhood Slow Streets program is to make sure that there's a safe crossing near any parks in the community. So we're also proposing a raised crosswalk on the sort of northern side of the neighborhood next to another one of the parks. So that's why we're specifically looking at adding a crosswalk in the area in addition to having speed humps on Copeland Street. So we'd really like your feedback on, in general, so we understand that you don't want to at 41. That's why we came up with a couple of different options, and we'd really love to hear which option people think is the most workable for the neighborhood.
I don't even know. I mean, right now, parking is horrendous on the street. I mean,
yeah,
so
if that's our number one concern, then option B has the least amount of parking impact. It's just 2 spaces where the crosswalk is.
Okay. So that's on the corner of Langford and Copeland, is that it?
Yes.
And then you're going to have a crosswalk down at Copeland and Moreland.
Yes.
Where the other park is.
Yeah, so I'm just going to show that for a minute. Yeah, so by the Gertrude House Playground, we had showed a couple of different options, and what the goal at Moreland and Fairland and Montrose is to build a raised intersection, which will slow speeds and also provide a safer crossing. And then at the closer to the entrance to the park by Copeland and Moreland. We'll also build a raised intersection, which eliminates the need for curb ramps and also slow speeds.
Now I can understand that design because the park entrance is exactly where you have these raised sidewalks.
Yeah, so the
Kids are
problem with Little Scobie is that the park entrance is kind of at a dangerous location for a crosswalk because of the curve in the road. So we did look at putting it closer to the park, like right in front of the park entrance or just afterwards, but we were concerned that drivers coming down Copeland wouldn't be able to see anyone in the crosswalk, and it could cause more issues than if it were north of the curve.
And to me, that's the purpose of having the speed humps, because that should
Yeah.
be slowing them down.
Right, so there will be speed humps. The challenge, however, is that without an official crosswalk,
Mhm.
technically people shouldn't be crossing the street there. So we're really trying to meet the desire line of people being able to cross the street near the playground so that they can have a safe place to cross the street and aren't sort of popping out between parked cars, which can be dangerous because you might not see them, especially if they're children. It can be hard because they're short and cars are quite tall. So we want to
I
try to
understand.
make a really safe place. So
It's, let me tell you, they're going to cross wherever, even with that crosswalk there. They will cross the street. I see it all the time.
yeah, and so at least in this case, there will be both a safe crosswalk and drivers will be slowing down because they'll have to go up and over the crosswalk.
I think Atlantic Park is the best option. That's what I think. And it's
Great.
not so much just because of my house, but I'm telling you, the kids do not cross at that location. They either come out, there's two entrances now, before there was just one. They either come out where the stairs are or they come where the little ramp is. That's where they come out. Now it's it's a little curve, you know, but as I see people driving down, they don't slow. I mean, they might, I don't see it happening. People are really, this is like a crossway to Warren Street. And that's all they're thinking about, getting to
Yeah.
Warren.
Yeah, we understand right now the conditions for crossing the street are not great because there are no speed humps or crosswalks or other traffic calming improvements right now. And our goal for this program is to create those conditions that would make the street feel safer. And I'm just going to go because there's a couple of other people with questions. So Alicia, would you like to ask your question?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I wanted to kind of just expound on to reiterate, well, pretty much just say what Elaine was saying in regards to where the danger zones are on this street. Like, we've had so many car accidents of our cars being parked on the opposite side where the park is, along that whole strip from 42, 44, all the way around the corner. And usually the cars will come from Langford Park. They'll come off of that street, or either they'll just come zooming down Copeland. And when they hit that curve, I guess that's when they lose it. So I mean, I can understand why you guys want to put the thing in front of Elaine's house, but to be honest with you, like she said, also is that the kids usually cross like further down, like where the curve actually goes further in, and which is actually across from a little, it's between 37 and Kim Janey's house, where that driveway is. And then when they go, and then also when they go around the corner, like they don't see when the cars are coming around the corner, they don't see the children that are crossing where Kim Janey's house is. There's a big complex there where there's a lot of kids that go to the park, and they cross from that area there. And I've, a couple of kids, I've actually seen one child get hit and another child almost get hit, because you can't see the child, and the child can't see the car until it actually makes that bend. So I think it would be more beneficial to have that hump moved over closer towards that bend where the street starts to go a little bit more straight.
So
Once these cars come through here, they're gonna know that those humps are there. So they're gonna start slowing down. But just to kind of alleviate it from being, in front of Elaine's house. And then also the Langford Park, is it possible that we could put a hump right there at that exit from Langford Park going on to Copeland?
So I can take a stab at answering that. So there's a lot there. I'm going to just bring it back to the beginning here is you guys see a lot of kids crossing further down the street around the curve where, again, it is dangerous. The problems you've talked about are people can't see them and vehicles that are speeding. So part of this whole neighborhood slow street zone is putting the speed humps in, which are keeping vehicles at a lower speed. So that's the first kind of blanket option that we're putting on the street to slow all of the vehicles down that are going. The second thing that we do is, as Stephanie said, we try to put raised safe crossings near parks. That's something we're doing as part of neighborhood slow streets. So we need to put it where we can legally put it. So as you've mentioned, around the corner there are poor visibility, and there is poor visibility. So something we have to deal with when we're designing these is I need to make sure that people can see the crosswalk and have time to react and stop if someone's in the crosswalk before they get there. So I can't put a crosswalk further down this street than what we have here without taking probably all of the parking on the street, which is really not an option that people are looking for at this time. I'd be fine with it, but that doesn't normally fly through the neighborhoods because everybody always, they want to keep the parking. So the next best option is to put it down on this end because I can't legally put a crossing up there where they are crossing without increasing the sight lines, which means taking parking. So this is our best option down here to give a safe crossing that people will know where that they can cross the street safely, and there will be a raised area. And throughout the street, there will be speed humps where we can place them to get the slower speeds that we're looking for to help in places where people perhaps are not using the crosswalks to cross the street.
So the sight lines pretty much determine how much space you're going to be taking away from how much parking space you'll be taking away from the street.
That can be a factor. So because we have two tight turns back to back here, I don't have it's called stopping sight distance, and it's basically the line of sight to the crosswalk. And because of the two tight curves, I do not get the line of sight that I need to the crosswalk to actually put a crosswalk there. I'm saying as an engineer, might be able to get it if we took away all of the parking on the curve, but that's 10 spaces there. And generally that doesn't go over well when that's our first suggestion.
Yeah, we do, when we think about like crossings, we do some measurement of sight lines, and that's just one of the design considerations when we, as a city, we can't put a crosswalk in a place where we know that that's going to be dangerous or it's going to create blind spots. So if these crosswalks are an investment, and we want to make sure that people's lives are trusting us to put something, that's not going to be dangerous on the street. So.
And I want to reiterate that there will still be speed humps on Copeland Street along the length, so we will be hitting that 20 miles an hour. I said 25 earlier, but the slow street zone is the 20 miles an hour that we are looking for. So I hope that answered your question. We're going to move on to the next person, and we can come back if there is more later. I'm not sure who
Yeah.
was next. I believe it was Lorraine.
Hi, I'm happy to see that some of the people on Copeland Street who live near the park are here to speak. I actually live on Moreland Street, and so I don't experience the street the same way that they do. Mostly when I drive down Copeland Street, it seems like there's almost no parking. That's during the day, that's during the evening. There's really no parking available there because a lot of the buildings have been turned. They may have started out as single families, but now they're 3-unit buildings, and there are additional people that would like to build more, in fact. And most of the buildings are not available to have driveways added. So they really don't have much parking. And, but at the same time, when you drive down the street, you see that people really accelerate on Copeland Street, and particularly at that curve in the street where you can't see so easily around the curve. So, you know, so I'm really grateful that those individuals who live close there to the park are here to speak. And actually, I wish there were a few more. So, you know, so I think that maybe you could talk a little bit more about why you want to raise crosswalk, that, you know, because I mean, we think of that. I live on Moreland Street. We really wanted both of the raised crosswalks. We don't, at present, we don't have as difficult a problem parking. And so the raised crosswalk is like the, you know, the best way to ensure that people can cross the street safely.
Yeah, absolutely. A raised crosswalk does double duty in slowing speeds and providing an accessible crossing. So, you know, curb ramps are often, and in the city, there's often issues with flooding or puddling, and sometimes it's very hard to design an accessible curb ramp, but we are required to build accessible curb ramps. That means that anyone using a mobility device like a wheelchair is able to navigate that crosswalk safely. So raised crossings in front, we can't build them everywhere in the city, but we try to prioritize them near areas where we know that kids, for example, are crossing the street. So places near parks, and that there's also that need to slow speed. So on Copeland Street, we've heard that there are a lot of drivers who speed, and so this is something that a raised crossing would do a lot to have that added benefit of both.
And
all of these options are also all feasible. So we'll as people are talking, please feel free to like soak this in and let us know if you have any specific questions about the design, about why one may be working better or more convenient than another.
Right, thank you.
Just on the topic of making sure that people on the street are aware, we will be following up from this meeting. So everything will be posted online and we'll send materials that way, but we will also make sure that all of the homes on this street know what the options are and have an opportunity to share their feedback before we sort of move forward with any design options. And with that, I think that Herschel is next.
Yes, first I'd like to say good evening to all the participants in this Zoom meeting. I live on Moreland Street, and I've lived there basically all my life. My personal preference would be to have Moreland Street one way, because I've seen vehicles flipped because of accidents. I've seen vehicles destroyed. People are sent to the hospitals right at Moreland and Whiting, right where that hump is in the street, because you really can't see. There's a blind spot there. Now, I'm not going to get the one way. So what's the next best option? Speed humps. I would say to everyone involved here, let's accept the speed humps for now as a neighborhood, because it's all about making it safe for everybody. Now, if the speed humps don't work, then we'll come back to the table and say, well, what can we do now to supplement safety in addition to the speed humps? Okay. I can't speak to Copeland. I've seen cars fly out of Copeland onto Warren Street. Okay. I don't understand how they do it without hitting cars and children. I guess I do now based on this meeting. But if the people that lived on Copeland could go back and kind of assist with knowledge and information to parents, hey, we're getting this. Teach your children how to cross the street. Don't cross in between cars. Cross at the crosswalk. I think that will add to it, because children don't understand regulations like adults do, but they do, and they can hear, because they have to rehearse that in school. When given proper instruction and the reasons why, I believe we'll have more of a compliant nature and attitude towards what is being done here by the city to make this area safe for everybody, not just children, but adults too. When you go to Brookline, you can't just drive your car through a crosswalk when someone is standing there. That will be the largest ticket you get. Well, the same should be for Roxbury. They made their neighborhood safe. We're trying to make our neighborhood safe. And we should take the attitude, you cannot come down here like this anymore. We don't know where you come from, but you need to take that back where you came from, because this is a safe neighborhood. And if I have to stand here and take your license plate down, I will do that. But these are our neighbors. These are our children. And we're making it safe for all of us, whether it be Copeland, Winthrop, Moreland, Whiting, wherever. I've driven down Copeland, but I drive slow because I'm in the neighborhood. I know there's a park there. I know there may be kids crossing, so I'm careful. But these, I'll say, individuals, to be respectful, that come from other areas using Moreland and Copeland as a throughway, a speedway throughway to get to where they need to go, and they're destroying lives, that is completely unacceptable as far as I'm concerned from this day going forward. So I accept the speed humps because I can't get a one-way street. Now, if the speed humps don't work, then we come back to the table and supplement that conversation with what else can we do? Do we need blinking lights? Do we need a stop? Do we need a red light to actually stop the traffic in two spots? I mean, everything's on the table, but the speed humps is a good start.
Thank you for your comments, Herschel. Just all right. Next we have Sam. Just ask you to unmute, and you should be able to unmute now.
Thank you. I really appreciate all three of the options. with the raised crosswalk, I think is really wonderful, especially with the senior housing that people would be able to use the raised crosswalk to not have to go down to street level and then back up. My one question is with the curb and the children that, cross to go to the park higher up, is it possible to make the bend just like more of an extreme style of chicane where, maybe after 37th, the sidewalk kind of pops out, sort of like how in option A, it sort of comes out, but doing it on the opposite side, right after 37th in front of Kim Janey's house. And similarly, it doesn't have to be as long in terms of taking up as much parking spots, but I feel like by making it more of an extreme turn, especially when they're street cleaning, people really can take those turns fast and not have to slow down. But you sort of build out the curb more, it would force cars to actually slow down going around the bend. Thank you.
Sure. Chicanes definitely can be an effective option. The street's already pretty narrow here, so I don't know how much more of a curve we could end up getting. So that might not be as effective. And the real point here is to get the raised crossing because that's going to get us the most safety. We can certainly look at that, but based on my experience in previous ones, if it's going to be a move of just a few inches of curb, that's probably not a effective use of our time or money because it ends up being on top of utilities and all that. And there might be better safety options available for us that also are cheaper. Thank you for your question. On to back to Elaine.
So what I wanted to know was with the Langford Park, because I'm looking at all the parking that's going to be lost, especially with street cleaning, like he was saying. That's a big issue. I mean, we already have trouble parking, but once something like this is done, that's going to be even more parking loss. And they're building the house on around the corner, a multi-level building. So that's going to be more people coming to park on our street because that's what happens with street cleaning. So what study did you do to figure out that this was the best way to go?
As in a raised crossing?
Yeah, and
option?
also on the other side of the park, there's an entrance. Are you going to put one there also?
So what I discussed before is I can't get the sight lines to put one on the other side of the park. That was the whole. I can't put a crosswalk there
She
because I
means
can't
on Dunreath, not
yes,
on
on
Copeland.
Dunreath.
I'm sorry, on Dunreath. I don't have an answer for that one right now. Stephanie, do you have an answer for that one?
That is something that we have talked about and will be exploring as well, because there is the entrance on that side too.
So we will look to there too. In general, this is the safest way we can cross at a park by putting a raised crossing. This has been used in a few other places in the city, and it's been used all over the world, and it's a generally accepted practice as a very safe crossing of a street.
Yeah, and just
Yeah.
to
Within the
reiterate,
last few years. Sorry.
Option
Sorry.
B is 2 parking spaces only, and that's the same that we would need for any type of crosswalk. So, we want to make sure that there is a safe and legal place to cross the street, understanding that people will still cross in other locations, and that's why we're going to slow speeds for the whole street. But to add a crosswalk, no matter what, is 2 parking spaces. So option B, which is just south of Langford Park, the intersection there, is 2 parking spaces. Option C is a little bit more and requires moving the accessible parking space, which may or may not be feasible. And then option A also has, I think the graphic showed up a little more parking loss than we probably actually would do, but it would be at least 3 parking spaces. Just
Minimum. I think
Right.
it'd be minimum 3, if
Yeah.
not more.
Right. So that one is a minimum 3, but option B is definitely 2. Option C is also about 3. So that's where, if you just want to like compare across based on how much parking loss there is, that's what the numbers are.
Looks like we're coming back to Herschel.
So I do have a question. I'm supposing that this is a twofold meeting, that not only do you bring information to us, but based on comments and questions, you take information or comments back for possible options. I keep hearing a theme pop up, which is parking, lack of parking. I know for a fact that people use Moreland Street and Whiting Street as a parking lot while they park and then walk around the corner to the bus stop, catch the bus, and then at the end of their workday, they come back, get their car and go home. Is it possible that we have permit parking on these streets so that outsiders cannot come in and take resident parking and have us in our meetings about our community concerns being blocked because you need to catch a bus and you're using the feasibility of an open parking spot on a side street or a main drag as your favor? And I'll listen for your answer.
Sorry, did you?
Dan, I can take this one.
Sure.
Sure. So the city does have a resident permit parking program that residents are allowed to request. It has been on pause during COVID and was supposed to be available again for residents to consider in 2022. The process actually doesn't start with the transportation department. It starts with your neighborhood liaison, and that would be Jason Gant. I'll drop his email in the chat, and he is the first person to talk to about looking for adding resident parking in the community. And I just, for all of our neighborhood slow street zones, this comes up. This isn't like unique or something we haven't heard before, but
Is Mr. Gant our neighborhood contact to City Hall?
Yes.
Okay, because I left him a voicemail 2 days ago with my cell number. He has not contacted me yet. And my concern was the minefield of potholes in his city that were there before the winter. We have new ones now.
Yeah.
Or the ones that were existing have gotten bigger. And I'm not going to get off topic here, but I did call him like 2 days ago. And I left a voicemail. I left my number. I haven't gotten any response to that.
Well, I can give you a quick update about potholes right now. Our public works crews were extremely busy for a little while, removing a bunch of snow. And in between the snow and the sort of like ice that we got this weekend, they were able to get out and start patching some potholes, especially ones that had gotten worse. I know that their work is really weather dependent. If it's too cold that they just can't put the asphalt down, it won't adhere. The city has a whole list that we need to get to and that they're going to work on as soon as possible. I don't know why he hasn't responded to your phone call yet, but I do know that He's your best advocate internally. And certainly you can also use Boston 311. So there's a mobile app, or you could call the mayor's hotline, and also like make a note of potholes, and those would be trackable. So you would get a case number, and they would be able to look it up for you, to tell you where it is in the process for filling.
Let me ask this, and then we can get back to the speed humps. If I've been calling about the potholes since July, nothing, these potholes cannot be filled in. They need to bring out a crew with a pave machine and actually grade the streets. And I'll say Warren Street between Quincy and Grove Hall. I'm telling you, it's a minefield.
Yeah. So we also have a repaving program. Usually that information is online too. And that again is the Public Works Department. So like Hannah, Dan, and I are kind of like, we're in the transportation department. So we're in the same family, but we're like the step siblings. So we don't always get all of the information. But if it's really that bad, then they should be planning for a repave. And I think that there is a list online, and I'll try to find it quickly now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, back to Lorraine.
I was just going to tell Herschel that an application for residential parking was submitted from Moreland Street. And it got delayed, of course, because of COVID. So there are lots of people on Moreland Street who share the same interest, that particularly on the end that of Moreland Street that's near Warren Street, that they just can't park any time of the day because the courthouse parkers park there, and they have other issues as well. But we did submit an application.
Okay, thank you.
Very quickly, Mike put a comment in the chat that I just want to read out loud for Dan or Hannah to answer. So Mike asks, are the locations of the speed humps on the website?
Yeah, I can take that one. So the speed humps, we shared this map. So all the streets in blue are streets that we've determined meet the criteria for speed humps based on the slope of the street, the curvature in the road. We also want to make sure that there's this sight line for the speed hump so that drivers see it ahead of them and can slow down before they hit it. So all the streets in blue include most of the streets within the zone. We haven't gone into the step of citing the specific locations, so that takes a little bit more work, that we go out and we make sure that we find locations that are not in front of driveways or on top of utility holes. And so you'll see some of us out on the street probably within the next few months. And what we're doing out there is we are finding specific locations for the speed humps. So, and specifically to answer your question, we'll post the information about that in the coming months. We'll have updated designs for everything in the zone, and then the specific locations for the speed humps. Sorry, Lorraine, did you get to ask your question?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to go back to all three designs. I'm hearing we definitely need to do more work to make sure that everyone on the street knows about these design concepts, We shared flyers on parked cars yesterday afternoon, telling everyone about this meeting, but we'll make sure that everyone gets the notice in their mailbox about these 3 options and can share feedback. So we'll be looking for feedback so that we can finalize this part of the plan within the next month, because we do want to keep this moving, because we know that several people in the neighborhood want to see these changes like speed humps and safer crosswalks soon. And our goal construction date is 2023. So in order to stay on that schedule, we do have to make sure that we're moving things along for the neighborhood. Yes, and so speed humps will be about 250, 100 feet, 150 feet apart. That's usually about 3 to 4 houses apart. And that's the speed that will slow speeds to 20, 25 miles per hour. Okay, so I just want to say that there are many ways to get in touch with us. I know some of you have already attended our virtual office hours. So Stephanie, if you could share the link, you can schedule it's basically you can access our calendar and schedule time to talk to us and ask more questions one-on-one. And you can always email or call us at any time. Please help sharing information with your neighbors. We do our best to try to get information out, but it always helps to when the information is coming from your neighbor. And as I mentioned, our goal we hope to have more information at the end of this summer about construction, and we hope that we can move forward with construction no later than 2023. So I'm just going to open it up if there are any more questions about Copeland Street or other aspects of the Neighborhood Slow Streets Plan. We're going to stay online for a couple more minutes if anyone wants to ask any other questions, but otherwise that's all the content that we really have to share with you today. Alicia.
Hi.
Yeah.
How are you? I just put it in the chat. So will there be any changes implemented from this meeting? I know that Elaine did mention that she didn't want the hump in front of her place. So we're going with option B, or have we settled on what option we?
Yeah, we definitely heard that. We heard that we need to reach out to more people, and we want to make sure that everyone else sees this. So after we share the video recording online so that people can hear the discussion, not everybody can come to a nightly meeting. We'll do our best to make sure that everyone on the street, on Copeland Street, can have time to share their thoughts, and then we'll reach out again with a proposal on how to move forward.
I will reiterate that we heard loudly tonight that option A in front of Elaine's house is not the option to go with. So we will hopefully be hearing from more people about whether they prefer option B or option C. Based on this meeting, I'm kind of leaning towards like option B is going to be what people want, but we want to make sure that we give everyone the opportunity to provide their feedback, as Hannah mentioned.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining tonight. We really appreciate having these discussions early in the design process as well, when we can still make changes. So we really appreciate all of you joining and lending your time and your thoughts.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.